Hello. So I'm a psychology student doing a grad dip in psychology, and it's really hard. I'm an artist. I'm interested in a lot of things, and I decided to do this because a bunch of reasons. One is simply financial. Ever since I started teaching, I've realized how amazing it is to spend time one-on-one with someone trying to help them. And so at some point it occurred to me, and I'd thought about it, ever since year 11 or 12 when I found out what psychology was, essentially. I won a choir prize at school, and the prize was a book voucher, and I bought Freud's Interpretation of Dreams, a big coffee table version with illustrations from Dali in it. And that was really cool. It got me excited. And so I vaguely thought about psychology, but it wasn't a big thing until I started teaching and realizing that that's where the meaning is for me. One-on-one interactions, I feel like I'm really good at that. And I feel like if I need to do like the same thing for 8 hours a day, my best bet is that. I think that would be the most bearable way to spend 8 hours all the same way for me. Now, I don't know if it's going to be necessary for me to spend 8 hours at a time doing that. I kind of hope it's not. I've spoken in a previous video about how my life's pretty good in terms of work hours at the moment, because I teach for a couple hours a day, and then I can work on the psychology degree for a couple hours a day, and also create for a couple hours a day, in theory at least. And so that works really well for me. On most, it keeps me happy and healthy. Only downside is money. But hopefully psychology would pay a little more. Maybe. I don't know. Anyway, the dream is to earn a little bit more and to engage in this practice that I'm not qualified to engage in right now. Ideally, the dream would be to be a clinical psychologist, but that's quite a long study route, so it's possible I'll wind up a different kind of counselor or therapist. We'll wait and see. But yeah, what I really wanted to talk about in this video is how hard it can be to study, to do work when so much else is meaningful. And I just wanted to sort of wonder about it. I've certainly heard people criticize education because, and this seems very valid to me, most degrees really just prove that you can work hard at arbitrary stuff, at stuff that actually doesn't matter very much. You can make yourself work hard. And that's very valuable for hiring someone who's going to do boring work, I suppose. I'm really hoping not to do work that is boring to me. One of my big aims in life is to engage with things that are genuinely meaningful and help me grow all the time. And it's a privilege to even have that aspiration, for sure. But I got it. I'm going to do it because I've tried doing work that doesn't do that for me. I've tried lots of sort of, more repetitive jobs is really how I describe them. I've done service jobs, and worked in kitchens and that kind of thing. Worked as a labourer in a couple of capacities. And that stuff, it's okay, and it might even be bearable. I mean, it would be bearable for life if it's all I could get, if it's what I had to do in order to stay alive. But I feel like I've got other options. Lucky me. Now, all this said, I did notice, I started this degree during lockdown because I noticed that I was kind of wasting a lot of my time. I was starting to watch a lot of TV and such because I could get my creative hours done to a satisfactory level and then feel sort of satisfied with myself and just veg out the rest of the time. And I didn't want to waste that many hours of my life. I mean, yeah, I'm not saying watching TV is necessarily a waste, but it started feeling that way to me, and I didn't know how to escape it. And this was a wonderfully structured way to escape it that felt like I was building towards a new life that I hadn't really even believed I could have before that time. And when I did it, and this is still the case, I think, the the material I had to consume was really stimulating. It's stuff I wouldn't read otherwise, all these psych papers and textbook readings. I wouldn't read it otherwise, but buried within it are many sort of nuggets of insights and just and rich stories and that kind of thing, and just connections I would never have made, or maybe just forcing myself through that, through hard texts, causes insight in me, even if it's insight inside me, even if it's got it may have nothing at all to do with the subject matter. I really noticed that a few assignments ago. It was a particularly heavy one, and so I was poorly organized, as I almost always am, I tend to leave things quite late. But I had 3 days leading up to its submission, and those 3 days were intense and just packed. I tend to, if I'm working, I can't seem to focus my energy, so my energy went in all directions very hard. And so I'd be having insights about my artistic practice and about philosophy and that kind of thing that really didn't have anything obvious to do with the assignment I was doing. And I'd sort of scribble notes here and there and hum to myself and invent tunes and things. It's pretty much like a forced, very mild manic episode when I have something due. At least when I can behave like that. I was very lucky to have the three days basically free leading up to that, and that's when I can really get myself into a juicy, fun headspace. But today I submitted something else. It was a much smaller essay. It was like a little mini essay kind of thing, and that was way harder. And it was sad because it didn't put enough strain on me to generate that kind of insight, and I was almost disappointed. I left too much time for it, and just found myself feeling rather lackluster as I got it done. But yeah, for me, something I've been learning a lot from the process. I've been learning how to write and therefore how to think more coherently, which I've stated in earlier videos is something really, really important to me. I want to learn how to think and speak coherently because I don't know if I've said this, but I have ADHD, and I don't know if this is actually as much to do with the ADHD, but I've always thought in rather unusual ways, and I tend to struggle to tell stories well and make coherent points, and so that's been really useful. Plus it's forced me to read stuff I wouldn't otherwise read, which has been wonderful. Plus I think I've written a lot of songs I otherwise wouldn't have written. Because of all this stimulation, it really fills me up with material and seems to trigger insights. So I think my creative practice may actually have benefited as much as it has, lost time that I could be paying attention to it, but I'm paying attention to the degree instead. So yeah, it's been a very ambivalent thing, but it's been hard. It's been really hard. That's something I should emphasize. It feels like the hardest long-term project I've ever done because it's long-term and it's really hard. Like my music degree, the only other real degree I've done, I suppose, although I have a Cert 3 and 4 in fitness. If you ever want to learn how to get fit, hit me up. Yeah, my music degree was, the material was easier to do, and so I had to work less hard, I think. And it was less, it made more sense to me. I felt like I was actually learning things, whereas here, sometimes I really don't feel that I'm learning. Well, I'm obviously always learning things. I'm learning how to better write, how to better fulfill the requirements they ask of me, which is as an abstract quality, a really useful one. It's something my partner's really good at, where she seems to be able to read quickly through an assignment and understand precisely what a marker will be looking for and be able to just produce that for them. And that's something I've I've never really understood, and I'm getting closer and closer, which is wonderful. And so that I think that is valuable, because in your life you're gonna have to, well, I'm gonna have to understand people's expectations of me frequently. Even if I'm a freelance artist, as I intend to continue being. Yeah, I mean, I need to understand Alice's expectations of me. I need to understand the government's expectations of me, so I don't break the law. There's lots of ways I need to, understand what people expect of me, and often, if for example, if I imagine if I can develop a bit of an audience, I might be able to better understand what they would want and provide them with that without being inauthentic. I rarely submit essays without being authentic, which is one of the reasons they're so hard, and one of the reasons I don't necessarily get good marks, because I really struggle to let go of a drive towards truth. And that's something I was going to mention before, is a few of these assignments have been desperately hard because they've asked us to engage in work like work that looks like science, because we're trying to learn how to run valid experiments, how to use the scientific method well. But the way they're teaching us to do that is by using experiments that have already been run for research that, one of them was about the Muller-Lyer illusion. You can look it up. It's about length of lines, how we perceive the length of lines. And for me, that really rocked me. I just spent weeks trying to frame it in a way that it could actually be meaningful to me, because to me, the research just didn't seem useful. I could see so many other directions that would be more immediately useful to the understanding of consciousness and perception and building of AI and all the applications that are allegedly associated with learning more about this illusion, because it seems to work, but we don't exactly know why, know the mechanism by which it occurs. There are lots of theories, not much of a consensus. And so yeah, that's probably the hardest part of this, and I'm really interested in hearing experiences or even just tips for how to engage in an assignment that seems counterproductive. That is, that your energy would be better spent elsewhere. You could learn all the same things, but better doing something else. Which, personally, I don't think I would have done the learning involved in this assignment, pointless as it seemed, had I not had to do this assignment. So it was actually useful for me. It gave me a deadline, and it gave me a thing to do that I just probably wouldn't engage in otherwise. So maybe it was useful. Learning discipline seems to be useful. That's one last thing I'll leave you with. This seems to have just been like a little list of things that have been on my mind. I don't know how interesting it'll be, but while it occurs to me, please follow, like, and subscribe if you want more material. I've also got a Patreon where you get Patreon-only videos and you get access to music early. My last little thing was, the discipline that I'm forced to, the discipline that I impose on myself in order to manage this degree seems to carry over into my creative life, so that often if I've just done several days of really hard uni work and had a deadline so that I've got a bit of time free, I'll find it easier than usual to engage really heavily with my creative practice, because I've really gotten that work ethic going, that momentum. Whereas if I've had a uni holiday for a couple of weeks, the first week maybe I'll do really well engaging with my creative practice and making the most of the time. And the second week, that momentum will often start to dwindle unless I'm really reaching the end of a project. So I'm really grateful to that momentum that it gives me too. It seems to, that sense of discipline, that sense of, I guess it's almost like an understanding of habituation to a higher level of discomfort that carries over onto the next few days. So I can be like, oh yeah, I'm less comfortable than I probably could be, but it's good. Discomfort's not just bad. So I hope that made some sense. As I said, I submitted something today, so I'm a bit fried, but I really wanted to make a video because I was running out of ones to post. So that's my video about my struggles with uni and my reasons for doing it. Uni, why it's hard and why I do it. So please like, subscribe, comment, engage with me about this. If you've heard of the Mulalaya illusion, I'd love to engage further about that. I might even make a video just about that, just sort of ranting and raving about how we're misframing the problem, in my opinion. So yeah, I guess that's me. Lots of love. Lots of love.